Stage.
At least the ponytail part. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve. Welcome back.
And I'm Scott.
And together we're Backyard Musings, broadcast in Apple Valley, California.
Yep, and we're still talking science and technology.
Well, we were having a little conversation before that.
We were. Yep.
Bad news for Sasquatch. A future Cascadia earthquake could unleash far more than just devastating shaking. It could sink large parts of the Pacific Northwest coastline, dramatically expanding flood zones and leaving thousands more residents and Sasquatches and buildings vulnerable to rising waters. Combined with climate-driven sea level rise, we dispute that, don't we?
Yeah. Anytime I hear climate change or global warming or any of that stuff, I gotta kind of cringe a little bit. But that's okay. That's just me.
I mean, we're in an ice age. The warming part, stuff's melting. We just had a report that there's more ice in the at the poles, than last couple of years.
Right.
How do you account for that?
I don't. It's
climate change?
It's a debate, right? I'm not into the climate changes. At least in our area here, it changes primarily 4 times a year, right? We're a 4-season area. We have a night. Oh yeah.
There's no snow. We don't have a winter.
Oh, yeah, we have a winter.
Okay,
for
winter
California,
and a summer.
Yeah, I mean we occasionally get snow here, but we get cold temperatures. We have been known to get single-digit temperatures, but it's very rare. But double digits, we do get some, low double digits, like in the teens.
Folks, can you educate Scott on what the 4 seasons are?
I'm not talking about people that live in the Midwest or the East Coast,
Michigan, Tennessee.
Slammed. Yeah,
where there's snow, there's spring, there's summer, and there's
right. We have 4 seasons here. It's cold in the winter, it's mild in the spring, it's hot in the summer, and it's kind of mild in the fall. So, and then we're into winter, and then it's cold. So,
combined with climate-driven sea level rise, entire communities may become uninhabitable. Natural coastal defenses could erode away, and the region could face a prolonged and painful recovery. So, I just want to point out on the series, The Expanse, really good Netflix or Amazon, whatever it is, series. They mitigated that rise by putting like these concrete barriers around so it could protect the city.
You don't
all around the coastline.
You don't think that's gonna be changed either when they have some kind of catastrophe like this? This is catastrophic.
Oh yeah, I mean earthquake, but I'm saying the rising water,
like a seawall.
Like a seawall.
Yeah. I don't think
really
the seawall is going to handle it.
You don't think it's so?
No, and I think it's going to affect more than the Pacific Northwest. I think it's going to come down to. I think it's going to affect almost everything along. If you have an earthquake that strong, don't you think it's going to affect the whole Pacific coast? I think it will in some way.
Oh, it depends on where the fault line is, and we're going to see where that fault line is.
Yeah, and then then you got tsunamis, and it's all crazy. So
scientists warn that this risk isn't isolated to Cascadia. Subduction zones worldwide are ticking time bombs and waiting to reshape coastlines in minutes. Would you like to know more?
Okay, the Pacific Northwest faces more than just the next great earthquake or Sasquatch sighting. And I'm sure you threw that in there, right? New research from Virginia Tech warns that a powerful earthquake combined with rising sea levels could dramatically increase flooding across Northern California. And I believe it'll come down to Southern California as well. Oregon and Washington, affecting the thousands of residents and properties.
Okay, we got a slide for you. It shows the subduction zone here. There we go. How do we best see this? Let's do that. There we go. That shows the subduction zones, like a 3D.
Yeah. So you're talking about a big shift, right?
A
plate shift
where it starts rocking and rolling. Right. We've seen some big ones in Alaska and Seattle area.
Right. And Japan, we're going to talk about that later, right?
The Ring of Fire, baby.
Yep.
A new study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that a major earthquake along the Cascadia subduction zone could cause coastal land to sink by as much as 6.5 feet. This sinking would expand the federally designated 1% coastal floodplain areas with a 1 in 100 annual chance of flooding by an additional 35 to 116 square miles.
Okay, so that doesn't sound like a lot to me, right? So your fence is about a 6-foot fence, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't sound like it's going to be that much, but if you take in
With that drop,
the area,
water comes in.
Yeah, it could be, it's like dropping a big dirt clod in a pond. There's a lot of disruption, even though it's not a very big dirt clod, not a very big pond, but there's a lot of disruption. So anyway, the expansion of the coastal floodplain, this is a quote, following a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake has not been previously quantified, and the impacts to land use could significantly increase the timeline to recovery. So says
Makes sense.
Researcher Tina Dura, lead author of the study and assistant professor of geosciences in the College of Science. We don't know where that College of Science is, huh?
Probably Pacific Northwest or something like that. Okay, so this slide shows the subduction zone, and then it's got some colored stuff on it. We're going to let you read that while we continue on. The study shows the greatest impacts would strike southern Washington, northern Oregon, and northern California, some of the region's most densely populated areas. And they say that because Sasquatch is up there. That's like the habitat, the area where it all started. Sasquatch. To predict the potential damage, Dura's team created tens of thousands of earthquake models. Oh, it's modeled. AI. Yep. To estimate the expected land subsidence or sinking from a future Cascadia megaquake. Using geospatial analysis, they then calculated how much the 1% floodplain would expand across 24 estuaries and coastal communities along the fault zone.
Because no one can predict exactly when the next large earthquake will occur, the researchers modeled two scenarios, an earthquake happening today and one striking in 2100.
That's way out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, how would you even know? Yeah, I'm probably not going to be alive either. So, when rising seas from climate change would make the flooding even worse. So then
you don't even have to back it up.
We don't even know.
You don't have to back it up with that. Just say 2100, the whole world's going to end, right?
Well, yeah, but even then, what is they say? AOC says we've only got about
7 more years, and
right?
the world is going to be
8 more years to go. So
destroyed or gone, whatever she said. Same thing with Gore. Gore said the same thing in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah. So why are we even funding these studies? I mean, I think it's a good idea, but if we've got these naysayers on this side saying that we're all going to be done by then
if you are a naysayer, let us know in the comments. Yeah. After you click like, let us know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like and subscribe before you go away. Before you
don't leave right now. Don't click.
We're doomed.
Right. The study estimates that following an earthquake today, an additional 14,350 residents, 3,000 Sasquatches, 22,500 structures, and 777 miles of roadway would fall within the post-earthquake floodplain, more than doubling flood exposure. Potential flooding would affect 5 airports, 18 critical facilities, including public schools, hospitals, police stations, fire stations, and Sasquatch habitat, 8 wastewater treatment plants, 1 electrical substation, and 57 potential contaminant sources, including animal feeding operations, gas stations, and solid waste facilities.
You keep making comments about Sasquatch. I believe the Sasquatch have been around a lot longer than most humans that have.
I'm not going to argue with you.
So they're survivalists. They're gonna figure out a way to survive this.
That's a good point.
So
they've been living with it.
They may be the only ones left
to adapt. Yeah.
By 2100, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) localized relative sea level rise projections show that sea levels along the Cascadia subduction zone could be up to 3 feet higher than today. Again, see, I don't.
It's a lot.
You talk about high tide. I don't know. Is it that much? I mean,
just imagine it with 3 feet higher. How far in could that creep? Depending on how steep.
They call that storm surge or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. This climate-driven sea level rise will amplify the impacts of future earthquake-driven subsidence, more than tripling the flood exposure of residents, structures, and roads. Yeah. So, one of the big things that they've always talked about in California is that if we have a big earthquake, inland areas are going to be beachfront property.
Prime beachfront,
yeah. Which I don't.
That's like
I
a
don't buy
tongue-in-cheek statement.
that. Yeah, I guess so. Because I mean, do they think it's just gonna float away or be sheared off? I mean, it depends on
No, it'll be sunk under the water.
plate. Yeah, these plates you're talking
Excellent
about, right?
opportunities for divers to get down there and take a look, and habitat for coral and stuff, reefs. Current low-lying land developed for cattle grazing and farming through diking and draining will experience heavy economic loss, as increased tidal inundation will cause over-salinization of soils and render them unusable. So wouldn't they just create more dikes and more inland
seawalls,
estuaries and
they have
stuff?
to build new seawalls. So
additional impacts include erosion of natural systems, particularly coastal estuaries, intertidal wetlands, and protective dunes and beaches. Oregon's got some great dunes. I went four-wheeling over there with my son when he was going to
Pismo Beach.
No way.
Dunes, yeah.
I've never been there.
Oh yeah,
there's dunes.
They got big sand dunes.
These act as buffers against storm surges and help to dissipate wave energy to prevent sediment erosion and protect property damage. According to Tina Dura, the loss of these ecosystems may not be recoverable, and inland movement may be constrained by topography and human development.
Okay, I'm gonna have to think about that one for a little bit, because we've already got development inland, right?
Yep.
So I don't know. Everybody's gonna have to adapt, I guess. The Cascadia subduction zone is one of the many regions in the Ring of Fire where the Pacific plate meets another tectonic plate, causing the strongest earthquakes in the world and the majority of volcanic eruptions. However, a great earthquake of those with a seismic magnitude of over 8,
that's a big one.
That's pretty big, yeah. Has not occurred along the Cascadia subduction zone since January 26, 1700. So
how do they know that? 1700. I mean, by then it's word to mouth. They don't have a printed system that's going to put it in the newspapers.
Somebody made a journal, I guess. I don't know. Somebody made a journal. Making coastal geologic records of past earthquakes and associated subsidence critical for understanding this hazard.
Subduction zones, which can also be found off the coast of Alaska, Russia, Japan, Indonesia, New Zealand, Zealandia, right, and South America, are all similar in that one tectonic plate slides beneath another. Along portions of these subduction zones, there is an initial uplift to the top plate. Pressure between the two plates gradually builds over centuries. The resultant, it's not in seconds, it takes a long time. Resultant earthquake is created when the plate above becomes unstuck. So that's rapid, unstucking, right? Offshore, that's a technical term, unstucking. Offshore, the plate rises, forcing an upward water surge that leads to a tsunami. Onshore, the plate subsides, immediately dropping the coastline up to 6.5 feet.
Okay. This is how it will go down. The earthquake shaking begins the process. For a magnitude 9 earthquake or over, that takes about 4 to 6 minutes.
That's terror right there.
That's a long time.
That's an eternity of terror.
Yeah. While the shaking is occurring, the land is dropping, and depending on tidal conditions, low-lying areas may experience immediate flooding. Within 15 to 20 minutes, the tsunami hits with further flooding. The entire process takes no longer than 30 minutes, and multiple tsunami waves may occur over 1 to 2 hours. However, the sinking of the land will persist for decades to centuries after the earthquake. That's crazy. That's crazy.
In the case of like Vesuvius, the port used to be right up to Pompeii. Now the water level is back because the land rose up.
Okay.
According to Dura, the 1960 Chile earthquake submerged a pine forest and farms, converting them to tidal marshes, and it flooded coastal towns, forcing residents to abandon their homes. The 1964 Alaska earthquake forced the relocation of communities and airstrips to higher ground. The 2004 Sumatra Andaman earthquake destroyed waterfront aquaculture and caused coastal erosion. And the 2011 earthquake in Japan caused erosion, disrupted ports, and contributed to a nuclear disaster.
I remember that one.
Yeah. And they've got it on film. You can see it. Crazy. People driving their cars trying to beat the wave.
There was a movie made about that one in
Japan?
No, Where was
Oh,
that?
in Indonesia.
Indonesia.
I was in
Yeah.
Iraq at that time. I was watching it live
Oh wow.
from like BBC. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, that movie was amazing. The special effects that they used in that. I can't even imagine that.
Is that Ewan McGregor? Is in that? And,
I don't remember who the actors were. I remember it centered around the family that had been got separated. And then
they finally got back.
They got together, which
Luckily.
is miraculous.
Yeah, miraculous.
But yeah, that kind of says it all. I mean, could you imagine that happening in LA?
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
It would be crazy, or anywhere for that matter, with a dense population. So.
Folks,
Crazy.
before you X out, click the like button, subscribe if you're not a subscriber. If you lasted this long, you must love us. Okay?
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
See ya. They must love us.